Welcome to another tutorial series on MySQL. Today we are going to look at SQL joins. I've done an earlier video on SQL joins, but there were quality issues with it, so we are going to look at joins once more. Okay, so let's dive into my DBL 300 connection. Okay, so it's going to take a while before it opens. Okay, so we have opened my SQL Workbench editor. We are now connected to the database server. But the first step we should take is to ensure a database is active. At the moment, when you look at the navigation pane here, we have three databases there. I have the UPAC DB, the Well DB, and the Sakila DB, or the Sakila database for that matter. But none of them is active. So to work on it, we want to make one of them active. Or the other option is for us to create an entirely new database. Yeah, I think today I want us to use the HR sample database we have in the LMS for the demonstration. So we should create a new database for HR. So let's open a new script. Okay, so we'll create a new database. Create database, or you say create schema, whichever one you want to use. So create schema. Let's call it HR. Maybe we'll say HR something. So HR Ghana is okay. Okay, HR Ghana database. Okay. Or we can even say HR ECG. It could be any company at all. Okay. So HR ECG. That is the database we have created. So we'll end it with a semicolon and then we'll execute it. Yeah, I also said that instead of using the execution buttons, you can also choose to go for the shortcut keys. Yeah, so the shortcut key for the middle execution button that we use most of the time is Control Enter. So if we use Control Enter, then it's going to execute it for us. So you can see that in the output pane down here, the schema HR ECG has been created. Okay, all right, let me zoom it out a bit. Okay, so now we have to activate the HR ECG database. So activate, so let's say use HR ECG. Okay, so let's put a semicolon and then we'll execute that as well. So Control Enter, that will execute it for you. Okay, you should be in the same line, so Control Enter. All right, so our HR ECG is now active, but at the moment, even though it's active, when you look at the navigator, you can't find it. So what we can do is to refresh the navigator. All right, so now we have the HR ECG shown there. Okay. All right, now I want to create another script where we can execute the HR database table. So I've opened a new script. I'm going to the course page. Let me go to the course page. I have the course page open here. I have the course page open here, and then when you go to the course page, lesson, yeah, in week 2, you have the HR sample database code there. So there are two links there. One is for the HR database tables, and then one is for the sample data itself. So first you have to copy the tables, and then later on you copy the sample table. So let me just open this in another tab. So this is the sample tables we have here. So make sure you copy everything, okay? Now let's get back to the workbench and then paste the HR sample code. So this is the HR sample code. There are a few things you have to correct. So let's look at it carefully. All right, so the first table there is the regions table. So create table regions. Then the first field is what region ID. The data type is what integer. And you are told that, it's auto increments and then it's a primary key. And so normal I say that, with the integer, we don't need to add the size of the integer. Yeah, that is obsolete. That was old fashioned. So we don't add integer size anymore. Then the auto increment, it means the system is going to generate region ID. So we don't have predefined region IDs that we are going to enter. Unlike your student IDs, that you are assigned students IDs already. With the regions, we don't have regions IDs. So we are going to allow the database engine itself to create the regions ID for us. Okay, so you use auto increment, then you add the primary key. This indicates that this particular field called regions ID is going to be the primary key field. Okay, then the next field we have is region. The data type is what variable character, because the regions names are going to be what of different sizes. All right, then the size, they are assuming that the largest size of the region name is going to be what 24 digits. Okay, and they are saying default null. So by default, it should accept null values. So yeah, if you leave this field empty, then you are going to be permitted to do that, and then the rest of the data will be entered. Okay, so we end the table with what close brackets and a semicolon. Okay, now let's go through the rest of the table. We have the countries table as well. So you just make sure that you get rid of all the integer sizes. Okay, then the other thing we should also look at is the foreign key here. So the foreign key is used to link two tables together. So the countries table is being linked to another table called regions table. So this is the regions table. So to do that, you have to identify the foreign key between the regions table and then the countries table, and that is the key field that is common to those two tables. So I'm looking at both tables. We have region ID. Okay, then there is region ID here. It means that is our foreign key. So let's start foreign key, then we'll bring in the region ID. Then we'll bring the table we are linking to. So references means you are linking, you are pointing to another table. So references, which table? That is the regions table. So we bring it down here. And now we want to know which field in the regions table we are referencing. Then that is the regions ID field in the regions table. So we bring it in brackets as well. Then we'll add on delete cascade and then on update cascade. And on delete cascade, as you are aware, it allows you to ensure referential integrity. It means when you delete record from the parent table, the corresponding record in the child table should be deleted, or the vice versa. If you also delete a record from the child table, the corresponding record in the parent table perhaps should also be deleted when you are having on delete cascade. But we can have a record in the parent table without having a record in the child table. So it means it only applies when you are deleting from the parent table. Yeah, when you are deleting from the parent table, then the child table is affected. But if you are deleting from the child table, the parent table is not affected. But when it comes to updating, yeah, when it comes to updating, if you are updating in the regions table, if you're updating in the parent table, then the child table should be affected. And then if you're updating from the child table, the regions table should be affected as well. So that is on update cascade. All right, so I think that is the only new thing there. Then the region ID, they say int, they're not null. It means it cannot be empty. It's a mandatory or it's a required field. Yeah, that's why we have it there. And because we intend to use it for the foreign key, then we have to make it mandatory such that people don't leave it blank. If they leave it blank and then we are using it as the primary key, then we have problems, because then some of our records cannot be uniquely identify, because the purpose of the primary key is to allow us to uniquely identify our records. Okay, so that table is also okay. So let me just get rid of all the integer sizes. Yeah. Okay, so with the minimum salary here, the data type is decimal. So with decimal, we use two numbers in a bracket. So the first one refers to what? The entire size of what? The number, including the decimal places. And the last number indicates the number of decimal places. So it means two decimal places. The total space should be what? 8 digits, and then it should have what? Two decimal places. So that is what that means. All right. So let's get rid of all the integer sizes. If we leave them, it's going to work nonetheless, but they are going to give us a warning sign telling us that in future that will be removed completely. Yeah, so in future it will not be recognized. So if you have a table that is having integer sizes defined, in future you are going to have what? Some bug issues when you run your code. So it means you may have to debug your code and then remove make the corrections. So let's correct it now so that we don't have to correct it in the future. So that's why I'm getting rid of all the integer sizes right here. Okay, so now that is our tables. There are 7 tables in number, and then there is also another issue here. They are trying to comment with what the consecutive hyphen, but that doesn't work anymore with my SQL workbench. So we just use the C-style notation for our comments. Okay, so now that the comment is also fixed. Okay, so we have all the codes. Everything is okay. If we are to run this code, we can just use the first execution button, or we use what? Control Shift Enter. When you are using the middle execution button, it is Control Enter. But if you are using what? The first execution button, where you want to execute an entire script, then you use what? Control Shift Enter. Okay. So let's execute using what the first execution button we have here. Okay, so it's going to run the entire code. So let's look at the output window. So you can see that at the moment it's running. Yeah, so there are so many steps. Yeah, so it will take less than a minute. Yeah, it will take less than a minute to execute all of them. Okay, so the execution is done, and then we can go to look at our table. So let's first um, go to what our script here. So I may call that script a general script. Okay, so in the general script we want to show all the tables in the all the tables in the HRECG database. So show tables. Okay, so let's just execute that. Show tables. This is going to show us all the tables. So we have what countries table, departments table, dependents table, employees table, jobs tables, locations table, and then regions table. So now let's show the tables one at a time. So select all from employees. So the spelling of what the names of the table is very important. So employees, there is S in it, so you make sure you always bring the S. So Control Enter. Okay, so this is the table. We don't have data in the table yet. Okay, so we can also describe the table. So describe employees. So this is going to show us the structure of the table. So Control Enter. Okay, this is the structure of the table. We have what the fields indicated, the first name, last name. Yeah, so these are all the fields in the employees table. Then we also have what the data types, and then we also have the status. So whether it's null or it's not null. Yeah, so whenever it can accept null, then they will say yes. And if it cannot accept a null value, then it will say no. Then the primary key, the keys are also indicated whether it is a primary key, so they use PRI. And if it is yeah, a reference, so if it is a link, then it will make it MUL. So okay, so the defaults, all the defaults are null. So by default, I mean the fields are going to be empty. And then extra, so if we are going to generate the IDs automatically, so we've also indicated that the ID should be generated automatically. So we have what auto increment right here. Okay, so we've seen our table structure, and then we've seen the table with our data. So the next thing we'll do is to add some data to our table. So I'm going to create a new script. Then we'll go to our LMS. Let's go to our LMS week 2. Then we'll go for the HR sample data. So you click on the first link, and then it's going to take you there. My internet is gone off, so let me reconnect. Okay, so let's see. So now this is the sample data it has taken us to. Let's copy everything. Yeah, make sure you copy everything here. All right, let's get back to the workbench, and then we'll paste it on the script. Okay, so you just have to scroll through and make sure there are no errors. I think the code should be able to run without any modifications at all. Okay, so again, we either use control shift enter. So let's try that. Control shift enter. So that is going to execute the entire data for us. So as you can see, the data is being entered. Okay, so it's still run. We have to wait for everything to be entered before we can continue. All right, so that is also done. Let's get back to our general script, which is right here, and we'll execute line 4. Yeah, we'll execute the command in line 4 so that we can see the data we've just installed. So I'm going to control enter. Okay, so we have our data displayed right here. Okay, so let me also show all the tables once more. So these are all the tables. So normally you want to keep this particular list of tables. So I'm going to pin it to the tab. So you right click and then you say pin tab. Then let's execute the command in line 4. So that will show us all the data in the employees table. So let's pin that one to tab as well. So once you pin it to tab, it's going to be there for you to navigate to whenever you want to look at it. Okay, so our main task today is to create join. So we want to create a join between the jobs table and then the employees table. Okay, let's create a join between the jobs table and the employees table. So there are 5 types of joins. So we have the inner join, the right join, the left join, and then the full join and the self join. Yeah, so let's start with the inner join. The inner join, what it does is that it's going to bring the intersection of the 2 tables. So if you, let's say, if there are how many records do we have in our employees table? Let's look at that first. So to look at the number of records, I mean, you use the count key. So select so you use select count. Select count. So count normally will open bracket, and then you bring whatever you are counting. So we can count employee first name or employee IDs, whichever one you want. Count employee, employee ID. So we are going to count employee IDs. So from, we need to indicate where we are doing the counting from. So from what? The table called what? Employees. Okay, so let's execute that. So that is control enter. Okay, there are 40 records in the employee table. Now let's go and count from, so I'm going to pin this one to tab as well. Okay, let's pin it to tab. So now let's go to count the number of what, let's look at the jobs table, then we'll count the number of yeah, job IDs or jobs. Okay, so select, yeah, all from what, the jobs table. So select all from the jobs. Select all from jobs. So control enter is going to execute it for us. So now we've seen the jobs table. We have what? Job ID, job title, minimum salary, and then what? Maximum salary. So these are the fields in the jobs table. Now we want to combine these two fields. We want to combine all the fields in what? The jobs table with all the fields in what? The employee table. Now let's count the number of what job IDs we have. So we are just going to say select count. Yeah, select count job ID. Okay, so job ID. So let's close that from where? From what? The jobs table. So from jobs. So let's execute that. All right, so there are 19. Yeah, so if we are using an inner join, it's going to look at the 40 records in the employees table, and then the 19 records in what? The jobs table, and then it will bring us the intersection. So the intersection can only be 19 or less. Yeah, so we can have 19 records what corresponding to what the records in the employees table at best. Yeah, we can have that, or we may have less than that because it's an intersection. Yeah, so let's say if there are some employees that do not have what job IDs, then it will be less. But normally every employee will have what? Some job to do. So they will have what? Some job title, they will have some job ID. Yeah, so in a situation like this, is if you are using the inner join, it's going to bring you what? 16 records. Okay, so let's see how it goes. So we are going to join the two tables together. So let's say select, okay, so select, let's say select all from, yeah. Okay, so now let's select some fields, not all the fields, okay? Okay, so let's select employee ID. Yeah, so in the selection, you have to indicate what? The table from which you are selecting from. You know, normally when we are selecting, we just select the field name. But if you are joining tables, you don't select only the field name. Every field you select, you have to indicate the table where the field belongs to, okay? So if you are selecting employee ID, so we'll say select what? Employee. Yeah, so we want to select employee ID. Okay, then we also want to select, let's look at the employees table. So we want to select employee ID first name. Let's select the first name. Okay, we want to select the first name. Then we also want to select the phone number. Let's say we want to select the phone number. Then we also want to select okay. Yeah, perhaps the department ID. Okay, so let's also select the department ID. Yeah, so all these selections will be in what? So department ID. Okay. So all these selections are coming from what? The employees table. Okay. So now, if you do it this way, the database engine wouldn't know the table you are talking of or you are referring to, because we'll also be adding the fields from what? the jobs table. Remember, we are joining two tables together. So to allow this database engine to understand the table, these particular columns, we need to indicate the table name before that. So we'll say employee. Yeah, so the spelling of employee here, you add s. So employees dot employee ID, employees dot first name. Yeah, so we have employees dot first name, and then employees dot phone number. Okay, so you just need to indicate the table name before you add the full name. Okay, so employee dot phone number is a dot and not a comma. Then we also have employees. Okay, employees dot department ID. So now we are done with all the employee table selection. Now let's go to the jobs table. So we want to select the job title, the minimum salary, and then the maximum salary. So we'll just continue with the jobs. So jobs dot job title. So the jobs, the name is having S. So we can look at the first table. So jobs, the name is having S. So you should take note of that. So this is the jobs table. Employee. Okay, this is the jobs table. Okay. So we have jobs dot job title. Job title. So there is an underscore here. Okay, then we can also have a comma. Then we have jobs dot minimum salary. So min salary. Let's put a comma. Then finally we'll have jobs dot max salary. So max salary. Okay, so these are all the fields we have selected from all the tables we have. Let me minimize, zoom it in a bit. Okay, so it's quite long, so I can decide to break it into two. Let me break it from here. Okay, so let's break it furthermore. Okay, so these are all the fields we want to select, and then we have to indicate the name of the table, put a dot before the field itself. Okay, so now we are going to indicate the first table in the join. So from which table? Employees table. So from employees. Okay, then we will now bring the join. We are using what we call the inner join, which gives us the intersection. So inner join, then now we bring the table we are joining. So that is the jobs table. We are joining the jobs table to our employees table. So employees table join to our jobs table. So employee inner join jobs. So you are selecting all these fields. So you can see that these fields are from those two tables, and then you are indicating that they are from employees. Then you are joining towards jobs. So employees inner join jobs. Then we need to indicate the field on which the join is going to take place, and that is going to be the related column or the related field. The related field we can see here is the job ID. So there is job ID in the jobs table. If we go to the employees table, we can also find job ID there. So that is a related field we can use to join the two tables. So now we'll say on. Then we'll say employees, employees dot job ID. Employees dot job ID equal to jobs dot jobs ID. So it means job ID inside what employees table and job ID inside the jobs table. Okay, so this is it. Then we'll simply bring our semicolon and then we'll execute it and we'll be fine. Okay, so let's execute this. So control enter. Okay, so you can see that we have what our new table here. So our new table is having what the first name, employees ID, first name, last, first name, phone number, department ID, job title, minimum salary, and then maximum salary. So this is a new table we have joined. Okay, it has a new table, and then when you look at the number of how many records do we have there? Okay, so unless we count it, okay, yeah, unless we count the number of records we have there. So let me see if I can use a count here. So we can say select count. Yeah, select count. Select count. So we are counting what employee ID. Okay. Select count employee ID. Okay, so now we have to indicate the table we are counting from. Okay, so from now we will now bring what the whole of this select statement in there. Okay. All right. So let's open bracket and put the whole of this select. So that will count it for us. So we'll put the select statement there, and then we need to close some brackets that we have opened. Um, okay. Okay. So select count, and then okay, yeah. Let's close this bracket. Okay, so all the brackets are closed. I think there is no syntax issue. So this is going to what to count all the what records in the new table we have created. Okay, the new table is created temporarily, so it's not stored anywhere. Yeah, that's why we are using the entire code, the entire selection code to count it. So let's execute it and then we'll see what happens. Okay, so there is some issue there. Okay. So let's see. So select count. Okay. Okay. We want to select count from. Okay. So let's go down and look at the problem with it. Okay. So you know it's a drive table. We should put an alias to what the drive table. So yeah. So it means we need to put an alias. So every drive table must have its own alias. So that's what they are telling us here. Okay, must have its own alias. 128. Okay, so every drive table must have its own alias.